So how are things?
Pretty good. I mean, I just got my DD 214 yesterday, so
Yeah,
I'm not
awesome.
officially out to the end of June, but it's definitely different, and you walk out of that building and you know
Yeah.
things are going to change.
Where are you at now?
Well, assignment wise, I'm at Rock Island, Illinois at Army Sustainment Command, but
Oh yeah.
I'm retiring back in Temple, Texas. When I was here as the three Corps food advisor, I we bought a house here. My wife stayed when I went to Rock Island, so she said no more moving. We're done, and
I understand that.
that just kind of set the stage for what I wanted to do. Because it
You got
looks like you and the family's having fun out there.
yeah, we're doing good. You can't complain too much about being stationed at not an army base, and I'm at my house now, so I mean, I'm working from home part of the time and
Can't beat that.
rubbing elbows with Hollywood types and such. And,
That's awesome.
yeah, not much of that, but you know, occasionally I have to, you know, I got to meet um, Drew Carey the other day.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So that was
Those are
fun.
the things, when you wear this uniform, you get people meet people like that, and you know Robert Irvine and
Yeah,
Hulk
yeah,
Hogan. I mean, some of the people that I grew up watching is just amazing when you get to actually meet those people.
yeah. So so some of that's fun. Um, so the way that this is going to go, um, the way it works best is if you can just kind of um, go on a little monologue about your time in the army, what has all the way up from why you joined and everything else, and then kind of run through uh, stations, significant things, and then kind of what led you to this point. And of course this point is where you're about to finish it up and start a new chapter or whatever. Um, but I mean, I think this will be a good. You get to give the full spectrum of you've got. I mean, you've got everything because you've had enlisted time. You've got um, a vast experience. But the less I have to intervene, the better that these end up going. Uh,
Okay.
but I mean, I'll ask questions or whatever to carry it along if you get at a stopping point or whatever. But I mean, really, so the idea is that every Hollywood movie that they do, it's a special forces whatever super something, and they everything has got to be the most super of super troopers, and that's the only, and everybody flies helicopters and drives tanks and does all these things. And the idea of this podcast is to help give a more realistic interpretation of you know everybody's cool, but it's not cool like it's different, right? So it's just to give them a better understanding, so that if nothing else, I'm not saying they're going to make a movie out of you, but you
Gosh, I hope not. 'Cause that'd be it'd be a boring movie. Well, that's it.
yeah. But if they were, then they would call us, and say, "Hey, we need your input on this," because that's one of the biggest things is that this helps at least you know at the end of the day, if nothing else, they'll say, "Hey, we should call those that entertainment office to run the script by them to see if this is actually feasible," because that's more of what we do rather than getting to go on movies sets and all that stuff is, we get scripts, and then, we run them by people that would, because people will write in some signal person and say, would it be feasible that they would know how to work on this piece of equipment or whatever, that type of thing. And just to make the movie industry a little better, right? Or a little more realistic. And so, um, we're able to give a somewhat entertaining podcast, and then they say, those guys might know what they're talking about. Then we've done our job. Uh, so I'm gonna start it up, and I'm gonna just give a little introduction, and then I'm just gonna introduce you as Chief Froehlich, and then you could give your full introduction and say, who you are and where you're from, and start from there.
Okay.
Alrighty. Hey everybody, welcome again to Joe Talks. I'm Sergeant First Class Nathan Hutchison. Appreciate everybody being here today. Once again, we are with the Army Entertainment Office. We are here for all of your Hollywood entertainment needs. I'm here today with Chief Froehlich. I've known Chief Froehlich for several years now, and we served together at 10th Mountain Division, as well as a little time over in Kuwait and Afghanistan. And he is going to talk with us today about his experience in the Army, and that experience is coming to a close here pretty soon. But he has a vast Army experience, and I think this is going to be a great show for you to see a full spectrum of what the Army offers. So with that, Chief, if you can take it away.
So, hey everybody, as Sergeant Hutchinson said, CW5 Froehlich. I've been in the Army close to 26 years now as it comes to a close. I'm from White Sulphur Springs, New York, which is very tiny. Not too many people have heard of it. It's actually not a town, it's a hamlet. It doesn't have no stoplights. I think there might be one stop sign, and if you blink real fast, you'll miss it and drive through it. But definitely in the Catskills, in the heart of the Catskills, upstate New York. Beautiful town, beautiful place. I lived there until I was right out of high school. About a year out of high school, I was married and had a 1-year-old son, and I was working 2 to 3 jobs, trying to make ends meet, and things just weren't going that great. And I was always interested in the Army, so in 1996, I actually married my wife. We weren't married yet. I married her in March, and in July of '96, I went to basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky, which was very strange and a very new world. So it was very, very challenging in some parts, and some parts were very, very familiar. I grew up in a household where, we were very disciplined, and we worked every day. My father, my mother, all of us, and so some of that made sense. But went to basic training Fort Knox. When I was done there, I went to Fort Lee, Virginia, for my AIT. I was a private. I was promoted to PV2 coming out of school because I was the distinguished honor graduate. So I guess I did something right there. My military occupational specialty is 92 golf. So at that time, it was a food service specialist. Now it's a culinary specialist. Makes it sound, I guess, better than we did before, but also more professional, which is great because we are, we are chefs, really. I mean, that's what we do. So I graduated AIT in December of '96, and the next thing I knew, I was in Baumholder, Germany, 1st Armored Division. So I spent 3 years in Germany. I finally got my wife there and my son. We had another son born in Germany, so that's one thing he always says is I was born in Germany. 1st Armored Division was very tough. Probably one of the toughest assignments I ever had. Spent a lot of time in the field, a lot of time cooking in the field. I spent some time in Bosnia. First time I ever was deployed was the 1st Armor in Bosnia. Very, very different situation. again. You know, I got to see some things that I never thought I'd see. Um, Redeployed back out of that, and then spent some more field time and in the armored division. Like I said, I left there in '99. Went to Fort Huachuca, Arizona. Absolutely one of the best places I ever went. Loved the weather. Loved living there. And while I was there, that's right around 9/11 happened, and that kind of changed the Army's world, the military overall forever. So it definitely changed my world. I had I had always planned on being a warrant officer. Time I got to Fort Huachuca, I was a E5 sergeant, and I made E6 there. Went to BNOC, all while 911 stuff was or 9/11 was going on, and it was definitely a different dynamic. But I finished that. Still growing as a 92 golf, learning the trade, but always wanted to be a warrant officer. Finished up in Fort Huachuca and moved to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which was, I think, a tipping point for me. Number one, I think I got to be a better NCO there. I was able to do other things. I was able to do operations. I was able to see, S1 operations, admin and just things outside of the dining facility, which made me, to me, more rounded and more trusted by the command. That was one of the places where I learned that, um, the commander was a person like everybody else. The first sergeant major was a person like everybody else. But they really took me under their wing and they taught me a lot about the Army itself and how to be a better, not only NCO, but a better soldier. So I thought that was one of the defining places for me. While I was there maybe a month. I met the installation warrant officer, the food service warrant officer. She said, "Hey, how would you like to be a Army warrant officer, food service? You got it down." I was running the dining facility on Fort Leonard Wood at the time, and I said, "Here's my packet. It's 3/4 of the way done. I just need that little push over the top." And it was CW3 Marianne Hackney who actually wrote my letter, and I was picked up first time. Went to school, graduated. Uh, Warrant Officer candidacy score, of course, was very challenging. It's different now, but when I was there, they focused a lot on attention to detail, and being an expert at what you do. And I think that kind of defined me of honing me in on the craft of a 922, a food service warrant officer. And I came out of school, went back to Fort Leonard Wood, and then they moved me to Fort Lewis, Washington. And I wasn't at Fort Lewis very long before I was deployed with 125 Striker Brigade. They had just finished changing over to a Striker Brigade, so that was a very interesting deployment. Probably my most challenging deployment. A lot of things happened. A lot of good people lost their lives, and um, it was very tough. Probably the toughest time I've ever been deployed, um, except this last time probably in my life. Just very challenging for me, very challenging for my wife, my kids. It was just something that was really one of the most challenging times, I guess, the best way to say it. I spent a lot of time out on the road. I was able to see, what people in Iraq were like, and what just the people like everybody else. They just had different problems. But it was definitely a learning experience, both as a soldier and as a warrant officer. Came right back to Fort Lewis within 6 months. I moved over to 593rd Sustainment Brigade. At the time, it was a Corps Support Group, and I deployed again. This time to Al Assad region, which was in the west. And I got a lot more experience not only dealing with food service and supply point discipline, but Marines. I had never worked with Marines before. Got a big chance to work with Marines. That was my first time working with really the sister services, which was awesome. Um, Learned a lot there. Came right back. Spent I came back in '07 that time. I spent another almost 3 years on Fort Lewis, kind of honing my garrison craft in the dining facilities. Did a lot of great things. Had probably one of the best staffs I ever had inside the facility. We won so many awards, not thanks to me, but thanks to the soldiers and the NCOs there. But definitely, set me apart, I guess, from my peers. Thanks to all the efforts of all them people. Um, Finished up there, and my next station was 101st Airborne. Um, Actually, 159 CAB, Combat Aviation Brigade. First time again I've ever been in an aviation brigade, but got some good experience there. Worked outside my MOS, so not only did I do food service, but I did a lot of S4 stuff, government purchase card, government travel card monitoring. I did all that. Was really, to me, another great place. I had a good commander, good DCO, good XO, a lot of good bosses in the S4 shop. And then I deployed again with them, this time to Kandahar, Afghanistan. When I deployed, they made me the mayor of the aerial wing portion of the airfield. So I was responsible for somewhere in the neighborhood of 158 aircraft, not only aircraft from the US, but from uh, uh, countries involved as well. Um, just met a host of good people. Got some good experience outside of food service. Again, I did everything from handle all the supplies, all the uh, daily uh, activities. So all your trash, all your water, your food, electricity, laundry. I did it all. I was what they called at that time a mayor, and I just ran everything. Um, Really great experience. Again, taught me a lot of different things. Taught me some humility. Um, but probably that was the biggest thing. It taught me humility because I had to deal with a lot of different people and solve a lot of complex problems. But did a lot of amazing things. I put a whole new airfield in. Um, was a contractor officer representative for that. Put up all new barriers, new fences, on new buildings, brand new buildings we put up while I was there. Just amazing stuff. Did all that. Came back, finished my time with 159 Combat Aviation Brigade, and then in 2012 I was with 10th Mountain. Uh, Spent some good time with 10th Mountain Division. Deployed twice with them, both to Afghanistan, both to Bagram Air Force or Air Base, and that's where me and Sergeant Hutchinson worked together. But it's just the first time we were RC East, the second time we were US 4 Alpha. So I got to see different things. Again, I wasn't only food service. I got to do just a myriad of things. I was in charge of all the activities that went into transferring bases over to the Afghanistan people and the military and just the civilians. And I was in charge of all the personal property that got transferred. Um, we were able to do a lot of that the first time I was there. And then plus all the food service. So I don't know, there was probably 9 facilities on Bagram. And then I went other places and looked at those facilities, all over Afghanistan. And then came back, deployed back, and within a year I went back again, and got some time with 10th Mountain again. This time it was focused on food service, which was nice. But again, there was always challenges. So we moved a lot of class 1 supplies, a lot of water, a lot of food. That's kind of defined my life. Uh, but again, a lot of good people. I can't say enough about the people you meet. It's probably the best part of the Army is just meeting the people and going to different places. That's probably the best part. But finished up in 10th Mountain. Did some schooling that I was a little behind on. Went to Korea for a year, so I got to do Army Field Support Brigade and Battalion, which was again totally different. So if you think about it, on the places I've been before that was all tactical force comm units. And this wasn't. This was like the business side of the Army. So all your supplies for your facilities, all life cycle equipment replacement, just operations that supported my 92 Gauls, my culinary specialists. That's what I was in charge of in Korea. So we had, I don't know, at the time, 21 facilities, and that included Japan. Did some time over there flying back and forth. So I got to see some great countries. Came back out of that position, came to Fort Hood, did 13th ESC, which I was able to be one of the, what was we, probably the third or fourth unit to bring in a field feeding company, which is basically taking all our culinary specialists out of all the units that are not traditionally BCTs and put them all into one company. So something that was really never done before, but that's the way the Army went. And then that unit supported all our echelons above brigades, so our engineers, our military police, our chem companies, all that was supported food service wise by the field feeding company. So again, a lot of knowledge for me. Made a lot of mistakes, fixed a lot of things, but eventually, that helped me to help others put their field feeding companies into place. So that was awesome. By the time I got to Fort Hood, I was a CW4. Made the list for CW5. I moved from 13th ESC over to 3 Corps, 4 food service position. So now I had divisions to look after a much bigger footprint, but definitely a good learning experience. Fort Hood is a great place. I mean, there's probably not a place I've been that I haven't liked, but Fort Hood is a great place. I like it. It reminds me a lot of Fort Huachuca, so it was very nice. Did my time in 3 Corps, actually deployed again with 3 Corps as a CW5 to Kuwait in support of Operation Inherent Resolve. Next to my first deployment, probably the hardest deployment ever, because there was just so many things going on. The movements in and out of Iraq and around, and the dwindling of forces, and it made moving food a challenge for me. Probably the most challenging that I ever had. And then you had other things going on. You had political stuff going on. You had COVID. When COVID happened, that was another one. Problems moving food always. But I made it through. Again, I worked with a lot of great people. That was my second time. My first time as a joint position was in Bagram, but this was my second job as a joint. So I got to work with other countries. I got to work with my sister services. Met a lot of great people from the reserves, the national. I mean, just one of the best experiences. My immediate boss was an Air Force. Actually, my immediate boss was a Marine. 2 Marines I had, and then our J4, our joint logistics chief, was a Air Force colonel, and just absolutely wonderful people. Can't say enough about them. But then I came back after deployment, and I went to the Army Sustainment Command, which is where I'm retiring out of. It's a place I wanted to go after spending time in the Army Field Support Brigade in Korea. I was able to go there and have oversight of 184 dining facilities in the United States Army all across the world. 36 supply subsistence points. Probably a $450 million budget for equipment and contracts and just everything across the garrison part of the Army for dining facilities or warrior restaurants. as we call them now. I'm old school, so I still call them dining facilities, but they're warrior restaurants now. They really are. And there's just so many people out there doing great things. Couldn't do what I do without not only the Army and the soldiers, but Army Sustainment Brigade or Army Sustainment Command taught me that, there's a lot of civilians out there that help us too. And they do a lot behind the scenes that, most soldiers never see or never understand what they do to support the soldiers. So, um, can't say enough about them either. They taught me a lot. They taught me how to be partially civilian and how to get ready to make that change, which I think probably at that point was probably the best for me. Um, so that's where I'm ending my career, 26 years. Absolutely the best time of my life I've had in the Army. A little scary when you take this uniform off because it's over half your life you spent doing this stuff. But I think I'm ready for the next chapter. So that's me in a nutshell.
All right, awesome. So can you just explain a little bit to everyone the differences between a, a soldier, an enlisted soldier, a warrant officer, and an officer?
So you got a listed soldier is usually your private through sergeant major. That's your enlisted ranks. Um, and I mean you're going from ground zero, to a senior enlisted non-commissioned officer. You know, really from E1 to me to E6, I was dealing with soldiers every day. And you do a myriad of things. You do all your soldier tasks. What your MOS is. And then you tack on deployments and all that stuff. I mean, we just do a myriad of things. Um, as a commissioned officers, those guys in the command positions, commanders, companies, battalions, brigades, and they are usually, a regular Army officer usually has a field, but can do many different things. They could be artillery, but they could be the S4, or they could be, an engineer, work in an engineer unit. They could do a myriad of different things across the Army, but usually they have a MOS or a area, like I said, artillery, MP, and that's their area. When you come to a warrant officer, we are a single track officer. So all those things that the officer does, we really don't do. We are a single track. So as an officer, you might be in the S4 where you're doing supplies, you're doing, you might have oversight of food service, you might have oversight of issue of clothing and materials. You could do S1 where you're doing administration, taking care of people's pay. You could do all that stuff. Warrant officer like me, food service, that's all I've done is food service. That is my specialty. That's where I'm an expert or a SME, a subject matter expert. I mean, that's what they call us. Um, Now, granted, I was afforded the ability to do a lot of different things, plus food service, but that's my specialty. That's what I hang my hat on is that. So that's kind of the difference between, enlisted officer and warrant officer.
All right. And if you can, you talked about the four-shop a little bit. Can you explain what a four-shop is?
So an S4 shop is really your logistics shop. So there's a lot of great quotes out there about war and fighting, but you can't fight without bullets. You're not going to make it very far without food. You're not going to drive very far without fuel. All that stuff comes from your S4 shop. That's your logistician and your logistics. So everything you get is from there. And to me, that's one of the most important parts of the Army. I mean, that's my home is logistics. If you read anything, I mean, any history book out there, there's a lot about war and fighting and battles, but there's also a lot about the quartermaster officer and the logistics officer that's providing that food and fuel and bullets to the front line. So that's your
Well, and that's
S4 job.
uh, so when you when you see things and you read about things and people talk about the military, when you talk about deployments, people think about infantry and they think about the combat arms, and obviously they are paramount. But as your list of deployments notes, that you know food and supply is a pretty significant part, and it needs to be there, or you know the
So it's
combat.
funny you say that because I've been deployed every rank as a warrant officer from W1 to W5. I've been deployed sometimes twice in the same rank. Um, and you're right. I mean, I've been everywhere. As everywhere as that a infantryman is, I've been there. And I've been not only with infantry, I mean, armor deployed, signal, engineers, combat aviation. I mean, just you're always there as a logistician. They're never going to forget you because they need you. So
Yeah. And you have, I mean, I remember going out to, I think it was Firebase Nawa out in Afghanistan. I mean, this was early in the deployments, and there was a cook out there. I think there was 20 people on the base, and one of those was a cook. So that's something that's important, right? I mean,
yes. You're out there sometimes by yourself. I mean, I went to bases both Iraq and Afghanistan where there's maybe two cooks running the whole site. Sometimes for 50 people, sometimes for 200 people. And it takes a lot. I mean, being a cook, I mean, I hate tooting horns and then telling you that we're the best, but being a cook's a tough job. I mean, our job doesn't go away. Our job is in the field, working 3, 4 o'clock in the morning till 6, 7, sometimes 8 o'clock at night, and then we come right back to the garrison, and our job doesn't go away. Our job doesn't change. There's no such thing as a 4-day weekend. We go to work. We work from again 4 or 5 in the morning till you know 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then we still have soldier tasks to do. That doesn't go away. We still have to qualify on our weapon. We still have to do our PT to be able to stay physically fit. All that stuff we have to do. I think it's one of the hardest jobs in the army to me.
can you talk a little bit about the advanced individual training, the AIT? What does that really consist of? Uh,
So basic training, of course, basic rifle marksmanship. You learn how to, take care of your weapon. How to load it, unload it, clean it, all that good stuff. You get your basic marching down, drill and ceremony. Um, you do your obstacle courses, all that stuff. But your basic classes on how to be a soldier. Then when you move to advanced individual training, I think that's where I flourished because I was always good at cooking anyway. So then you get your, for me on 92 golf side, you get your um at least when I went, it's a little different now. But when I went, it was small quantity baking, small quantity cooking, small garrison, large garrison. So anywhere from cooking a serving to cooking 500, 600 servings, and not just one product. It could be 2, 3, 5 products. So you learn that in AIT, and then you're off to your unit. But there's so many things after that. You have your for me it was PLDC, primary leadership development training, where you're taught to be an NCO, non-commissioned officer. Your basic non-commissioned officer course, which was more focused towards your MOS specialty. So we got some time. You did your basic stuff, but you also went and you learned advanced cooking and you know, to use your computer system inside the dining facility and all that stuff. And then warrant officer, like I said, it's to me, candidacy course was very challenging, physically and mentally, because they challenge you that way. And not everybody can be a warrant officer because it is very challenging. So, and then as you move through schools, for me, going to intermediate level education and senior staff and stuff like that, it's more about learning, the inner workings of the staff. Not only from we you start out with advanced course and stuff like that, you're talking a brigade, battalion brigade level, but then you start talking the time you get for making CW5, you're talking senior staff level education. You're talking doing strategic stuff. You're talking everything from reading the national security policy to you know learning how the battlefield works on a strategic level. So I think the Army does a pretty good job of education. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Do you have any specific moments in this 26 years that stand out as whether it was an event that was there anybody or any events that you had to make preparations for that stand out as like one of those?
Probably the most difficult is for me that stands out the most is my first deployment to Merez. There was a suicide bombing attack that took out our dining facility. Uh, Probably one of the largest attacks. I think it's still one of the largest attacks that happened during the war. We lost 22 soldiers, not to mention civilians and contractors. But I mean, that was challenging for me because we lost dining facility. So
Yeah.
we had no place to make food. Um, Luckily, we had a great group of 92 golfs. We had a great group of logisticians and supporting commanders. Um, we worked a lot out of buildings. We worked a lot out of our mobile kitchen trailers. And we put together, so it happened the 21st of December. So within 3 days, we put together a Christmas meal for the 25th of December.
Wow.
That is probably the most memorable for me because it just I think it kind of defined me as a food service moral. So being able to do that and pull together, you know, uh, culinary specialists and staffs and uh, supply trains and trucks and just all that is just to me is one of those defining moments of my career. And then being seeing it on a total opposite spectrum. So that deployment, and then being back in Kuwait supporting Operation Inherent Resolve, and seeing how things hadn't really changed, but they've morphed into a different way of doing things. The 92 Golf presence, the military cook presence was smaller. It was still there, but it was smaller, and we had a lot more contractors. Um, you know, Not that we didn't have contractors in Merez at the time, because we did. We had Kellogg Brown and Root, absolutely a great bunch of individuals. Some of those individuals I've seen multiple times throughout my career. From the time I was a young warrant officer to a CW5, I see the same people. And we connect. I mean, that's the thing. That's the great thing is they remember me because we went through that together. So, I think that it says a lot about them. It says a lot about me that we're still doing the same thing. But very challenging. That was probably the most. And then probably when we started closing down Afghanistan, kind of moving all that together. I mean, that was just another one of those defining times. Not only that I got to do it, but I got to work with some great individuals. I got to work with an Australian one-star general that was absolutely the best. Um, so I got to visit a lot of different places, see a lot of different things. Um, but to me, not just not just Merez and that one incident. I mean, that's the defining incident for me. But it was just so many things that year. I got to go to so many bases that weren't even bases yet. We made bases that weren't bases yet, and just being able to put food service there, and seeing my 92 Golfs go out there and actually perform without anything, shows you how expeditionary, we really are. So.
Yeah. Um, and so I think the last thing that we can talk about is, because it's a significant thing. I think it's come up as some of the important things to talk about as of recent. But the work-life balance. You've listed off probably 8 or 9 deployments, right? Counting Korea, and all the things that you're leaving your family for. And you're through it successfully. You got 2 kids and a wife, and so how has that worked for you? What is there anything that stands out as significant that you've?
Well, number one, you have to have a great family support system, without a doubt. My wife is absolutely the greatest person. She's done more than me. I mean, to be honest, going and deploying is never easy, but being home and taking care of the house, the kids, the bills, it just adds on. And probably that's, to me, you have to have a good partner. Whoever that partner is, whether it's your mom, your dad, your sisters, brothers, significant other, spouse, whoever it is, you have to have that person, or people. I've told warrant officers, potential warrant officers, they always say, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes an army to feed somebody, and it takes that family support system to support that soldier that's doing that. And my wife's been great. She got a chance. When I was with 10th Mountain, we were able to do some uh, public dressing of what we go through in all these deployments. And I thought, my wife talking and my kids talking was probably the best part, because people got to hear it from their side. It's easy to me. It's easy from my side. You get used to it. You become, you know, uniform becomes a part of you. But when you come home, number one, you got to transition back to having a wife and kids. That sometimes can be very difficult for soldiers. It was difficult for me. Probably the first 2 deployments, since they were so close together. When I came back from the second one, it was very difficult, and I had to go see a chaplain and some life counselors, because it was very difficult. But the good thing is my wife stuck beside me, and we learned how to deal with it, and we became, dare I say, experts at it. And she is very, very much an expert, very much. And my kids are doing great. They had to move a lot, and that's tough on kids. Always moving. You make friends, you lose friends. So that's the other thing. You have to have that good family support system, because your friend system is great, but it's always getting drug away from you. Now you're right. Probably without a doubt, she's the true warrior, because she's out there making it happen every day. So, and she's happy. She's happy now because I'm home. No more deployments. My honeydew list is nice and long, and I'm knocking it down every day. But I'm gonna enjoy being retired and being home with them every day, and not having to leave and say, "Hey, I'll be back." 12 months or 6 months. Even being at Army Sustainment Command, my wife stayed here in Texas. So she ran the household from here in, Texas. Not only that, but she took care of me there. She took care of my apartment, my electric, all that, so I could just go to work every day. So yeah, definitely hats off to military spouses. No matter who they are, what they do. It's a tough job, but thank goodness we got them to do it. So.
Yeah. Well, but it's a team process, so you both put in work. So that's commendable, um, to see it through 26 years and multiple deployments.
You say that we were actually had our anniversary back in March, and we figured out my time. We didn't count schooling in there, but we were somewhere in the 7-year mark to 8-year mark of being apart just for deployments and getting ready for deployment. And then when you add in schools and field training and all that, it's about half of my 26 years have been spent somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I think that's important for people to understand just how long it really is, because sometimes we only see the part where we're actually deploying, but there's a lot that leads up to that where you're actually away from your family. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Technology has helped with that a lot, I'm sure. But those first couple of deployments had to be, um, that video conferencing and stuff like that wasn't
I
quite the
got good
same.
at writing letters, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I was very good at writing letters and receiving letters. But you're right. Now it's just, I think it's much better for a soldier nowadays. Now, I mean, you can literally reach out and see your significant other, by video. But you're right. And those first, especially like Bosnia. Bosnia, I wrote letters probably once a week back home. And I received letters, which was nice. It's always nice. It's always nice to be in video, but it's even nicer to get that box from home with, your favorite snack or whatever it is, and then that letter, and just makes your day. So yeah, definitely technology has changed what we do and how we do it, but still very hard. Still very hard because you just can't reach out and touch them. When we get to that point, we're good. You just
yeah.
teleport home and see everybody and teleport back, and we're good.
Do you have any plans once you get out, or you gonna take some
Yeah, I
time off for a little
actually,
while?
well, place I'm sitting is going to be my office. I'm working on it. It's not very colorful yet, but I got a lot of goodies around me that I'm going to hang on the walls. A lot of guidons, a lot of memories, things that are really important to me that remind me of all the time that I've been in the military and what I've done. But I got myself a job. I'm going to be working for Aramark Industry in the food service realm, Healthcare Plus here in Temple. I did an internship with Hiring Our Heroes, which is probably one of the best programs the Army has to offer. I've been singing their praises since I finished the program, and it is a great program. It kind of prepares you for being out of this uniform, because when you spend 26 years in this uniform, it's very hard to take this uniform off and you know just be Wade Froehlich. I'm going to work, other than being CW5 Froehlich, and I got to be in these meetings, and I got to take care of these people and all over the world. And so yeah, having said all that, yes, I have a job. I'm going to start probably at the end of June. My wife and kids were very generous when I come home. They surprised me. We have a trip at the beginning of June to go to Walt Disney World and Universal Studios. So I'm super excited about that. I haven't been on vacation a long time. So I'm super excited for that. I'm super excited just to be at home and set my office up and work outside. I'm putting in a pool, and I mean, that's the things you live for. Now I get to reap all the benefits of all those years. So that's my plan. Just enjoy life and learn a little bit about the corporate world and see where it takes me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, do you have anything else to add?
Um, Probably the closing remark would be, probably this is the best time of my life. This is the best thing I ever could have done. When I put on this uniform, it meant the world to me. It provided a stable environment, and I say stable even though there was deployments, but a stable environment for my wife and my kids. They never had to worry about a meal, never had to worry about health care. You know, um, Biggest thing they had to worry about was me being gone. But I've learned so much in 26 years, um, and I've tried to give some back. Hopefully, I have, because there's other people coming behind me that are going to do great things, and I know it's time. It's time for me to take this off and let other people do great things. So,
All right. Well, for those listening, thank you thank you for paying attention, and check out some of the other podcasts that we have on our site. If you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to us on all the social media platforms, and any way else that you can get in touch with us. But Chief Froehlich, maybe for the last time that I call you that, I appreciate your time. And
Well, thanks for having me. It was great.
All right. Let me stop these recordings.